6 subtle signs an elderly person may be in their final year. Important warnings you shouldn't overlook. Have you noticed little changes in yourself? Or maybe in someone you love? A bit more tired than usual, forgetting names, or skipping meals they used to enjoy? You might think, well, that's just getting older. But what if I told you these quiet shifts could actually be the body's gentle way of saying, it's beginning to let go? Well, I'm glad you're here. My name's William, and for over 50 years, I've walked alongside older adults, coaching, guiding, and caring through every season of life. From healthy eating and memory care, to Medicare, mobility, and mindset. I've seen it all. And today, I want to talk to you heart to heart, because there are signs, subtle signs, that often appear up to a year before a person's final chapter. Signs that most folks miss until it's too late. But you don't have to. When we recognize these moments early, we can prepare with kindness, courage, and deep compassion. We can create peace, preserve dignity, and most of all, make every moment truly matter. So stick with me, friend, and let's talk about 6 subtle signs an elderly person may be in their final year, and why noticing them might just be the greatest act of love you can give. Sign 1. Extreme fatigue that doesn't go away. You know, one of the first things I often hear from families is, Dad's been sleeping a lot lately, or Mom just doesn't have the energy she used to. At first glance, it seems normal, right? After all, we all slow down with age. But when you start to see a deep, ongoing exhaustion that just doesn't go away, no matter how much they rest, that's when it's time to pay closer attention. This kind of fatigue isn't just about needing a nap after a long walk. It's the kind of tired that makes getting out of bed feel like climbing a mountain. It shows up in small ways: less interest in cooking, skipping conversations, or giving up favorite hobbies. Even something as simple as getting dressed or brushing teeth can start to feel like too much. Now, why does this happen? Well, as the body begins to prepare for its final season, it starts conserving energy. The heart might not pump as efficiently, muscles lose strength, and the lungs don't bring in as much oxygen. So instead of fueling activity, the body redirects that energy inward, just to keep the basics going. It's also emotionally hard. Folks who once prided themselves on independence may feel frustrated, even embarrassed that they need help. They may pull away, not because they've given up, but because they're tired. In a way, words just can't explain. And here's the most important part. This is not something to push through. Trying to pep talk your loved one into staying active might do more harm than good. Instead, honor the pace their body is asking for. Let them rest. Be present. Because in these quiet, slower days, you may just find the most meaningful moments of all. Now, while fatigue is something you can see with your eyes, the next sign happens in the mind. It can be subtle at first. A little forgetfulness here, a moment of confusion there. But over time, it starts painting a clearer picture. Let's talk about sign 2, mental confusion and emotional withdrawal. You know, sometimes the most telling changes aren't in the body. They're in the mind. I've seen it more times than I can count. Someone who used to be sharp as a tack starts forgetting what day it is, or struggles to follow a simple conversation. At first, it might seem like ordinary forgetfulness. I mean, we all lose our keys now and then, right? But when it becomes more frequent, repeating the same question, getting lost in a familiar place, or forgetting names of people they've known for years. It's often a sign that something deeper is going on. As the body starts to slow down, so does the brain. Reduced blood flow and lower oxygen levels mean the brain isn't getting the nourishment it needs. And when that happens, mental clarity begins to fade. But here's something most people don't realize. Confusion is often paired with emotional withdrawal. That person who used to light up at a visit might start sitting quietly, barely speaking. They might stop engaging in conversations or lose interest in things they once loved. And it's not because they don't care anymore. It's because interacting becomes exhausting, mentally, emotionally, and even physically. The world starts to feel overwhelming, and the safest place to retreat is inward. I've sat with many families during this stage, and I know how heartbreaking it can be. It feels like you're losing someone piece by piece. But here's the truth. They're still in there. Even if they can't always find the right words, they still feel your presence, your touch, your voice, your love. So don't try to pull them back into who they were. Instead, meet them where they are. Speak gently. Sit quietly beside them. Hold their hand. Sometimes, silence speaks the loudest form of love. Now, while changes in the mind can be hard to witness, the next sign often shows up physically, and it's one many families overlook until it becomes too obvious to ignore. That brings us to sign 3, a change many overlook until it's already taken its toll: unexplained and ongoing weight loss. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed an elderly loved one suddenly needing to tighten their belt or their clothes, hanging a little looser than before? Maybe they're eating less or pushing the plate away halfway through a meal. It's easy to chalk that up to aging. But when that weight starts slipping away without trying, especially over weeks or months, it's often a sign that the body's going through a deeper shift. You see, as the body prepares for its final chapter, appetite often fades. Food just doesn't taste the same. Or the desire to eat simply disappears. And it's not about being picky. It's biological. The body slows digestion. The sense of hunger weakens. And even the ability to absorb nutrients begins to fail. Muscle mass drops too. And when that happens, we're not just talking about looking thinner. We're talking about less strength, less mobility, and greater risk of falls or illness. Families often try to help, adding protein shakes, cooking favorite meals, encouraging just a few more bites. And while that's coming from love, sometimes it's not about the food anymore. Because what's really happening is that the body is quietly conserving energy. It's no longer focused on growing or even maintaining. It's shifting into a state of letting go. And in that stage, comfort becomes more important than calories. So instead of worrying about big meals, think small, soft, easy to enjoy bites. Think warm soup, a spoonful of mashed potatoes, or a favorite fruit. Offer hydration, not pressure. Kindness, not coaxing. Because even in these changes, there's a beautiful way to care. It's not about fixing the weight. It's about nourishing the moment. Now, as the body begins to lose strength from the inside, another sign often starts to show on the outside, one that may seem like a string of bad luck, but is really the immune system waving a quiet white flag. Let's talk about sign 4, frequent infections and slower healing. Now here's something I've seen time and time again. A senior who rarely got sick suddenly starts catching every little cold going around. A small scratch becomes a sore that won't heal. A simple UTI turns into a week-long ordeal and then comes back just a few weeks later. At first, it might seem like bad luck or just a dip in the weather. But the truth is, these are often signs that the immune system is winding down. You see, when the body begins entering its final stage, it stops fighting as fiercely as it once did. White blood cells, which usually jump into action against bacteria and viruses, begin to slow. The skin thins, circulation weakens, and even the smallest injury takes longer to repair. What's even trickier? In seniors, infections don't always show up the way you'd expect. Instead of a fever or a cough, the first sign might be confusion, sudden fatigue, or just not seeming like themselves. It's subtle, but powerful. I remember one gentleman I worked with, sharp as a tack, all his life. Then one morning, he couldn't remember how to make coffee. Turned out, he had a urinary tract infection. No fever, no pain, just confusion. That's how it shows up sometimes. And while antibiotics can help in the short term, over time, the body becomes slower to respond. Infections become more frequent, more stubborn, and recovery takes longer. So what can you do? You focus on comfort and prevention. Keep the skin clean and moisturized. Make sure they're drinking water, even small sips. Watch for sudden changes in alertness or mood, and keep environments calm and stress-free. Because in this chapter of life, it's not always about curing, it's about caring. Now, as the immune system begins to fade, there's one more sign that speaks louder than words. You might see it, feel it, even hear it. It's in the rhythm of the breath and the way warmth begins to leave the fingertips. Let's talk about sign number 5, changes in breathing and circulation. Now this next sign, it's one that touches the heart in a different way. You're sitting beside your loved one, maybe reading, maybe just holding their hand, and then you notice it. Their breathing sounds different. It might be slower than usual, or maybe there are long pauses between breaths. Sometimes it speeds up suddenly, then slows down again. What we call Cheney-Stokes breathing. To someone unfamiliar, it might feel scary, like something's wrong. But truthfully, it's the body's natural rhythm changing, slowing down as it prepares to rest. Breathing isn't the only thing that shifts. Their hands, feet, or even the tip of their nose might start to feel cold to the touch. You may see a bluish or mottled look on the skin, especially around the toes or fingertips. That's because the body is redirecting blood flow away from the limbs and toward the vital organs. It's a sign that the heart isn't pumping with the same strength it once did. Some folks also begin to feel short of breath, even with small movements, like sitting up or turning in bed. You might hear a gurgling sound in their chest, or notice they're breathing through their mouth more often. It's not always painful, but it can be uncomfortable. So, what can we do? Sometimes it's the little comforts that make all the difference. Propping them up with pillows so they can breathe easier. Using a cool fan or humidifier to ease that tight feeling in the chest. Sips of water or ice chips to soothe a dry throat. In some cases, a doctor might suggest oxygen or medication, but even without that, just being there can bring peace. Because when the breath begins to change, what matters most isn't fixing it. It's being present, offering warmth, reassurance, love. Now, all the signs we've talked about so far are physical or mental, but this next one, it's something deeper. It's not always easy to spot, but when you see it, you'll feel it in your heart. Let's talk about sign 6. A loss of interest in life and a gentle sense of letting go. This final sign, well, it's not something you'll read on a chart or hear in a doctor's office. But those of us who've spent years walking this journey, we know it when we see it. It's a quiet shift, a soft turning inward, a moment when your loved one begins to gently let go. Maybe they start giving away old keepsakes, or talk more about childhood memories than today's news. Maybe they stop asking what's for dinner, or no longer care who's coming over this weekend. It's not depression. It's not sadness. It's something more sacred than that. It's acceptance. I remember a woman I worked with years ago. Her name was Mary. Fierce, funny, and full of life. One day she looked at me and said, "I'm not scared. I'm just tired. I think I'm ready." And that moment was full of peace. You see, the body might give us the physical signs, but the spirit speaks too. And when someone begins to release their hold on routines, responsibilities, and even relationships, it's often because they know. On some deeper level, they know the journey is nearing its end. They may stop making plans. They may spend more time in silence. And sometimes, they'll seem more calm than ever before, almost as if they've made peace with what's to come. As family, it's natural to want to pull them back, to remind them of holidays, grandchildren, favorite songs. But in these tender moments, the greatest gift we can give is permission. Permission to rest, to reflect, to be. Sit with them, listen, hold their hand. Let them share stories if they want to, or just be still if they don't. Because when a person begins to let go of life, what they often need most is to feel that they're not alone. So now that we've walked through these 6 subtle but powerful signs, you might be wondering, what now? Well, friend, let's talk about what it really means to be prepared, for them and for you. So, we've talked about 6 quiet signs the body and spirit may give us in life's final chapter. And I know this isn't an easy conversation, but here's the truth, my friend. Knowledge is love. When we recognize these signs early, we don't just prepare for the end. We make the most of the time we still have. It's a chance to hold someone's hand a little longer, to say what's in your heart, to bring comfort, dignity, and peace where it matters most. This isn't about giving up. It's about showing up with grace, with gentleness, and with the courage to walk beside someone you love. And if this message spoke to you, whether for yourself, a parent, a partner, or a dear friend, know this: you're not alone. I'll be right here with you every step of the way. If this message touched your heart, I'd be honored if you'd give it a like, share it with someone who may need it, and subscribe so we can keep walking this journey together. And in the videos to come, I'll be sharing more heartfelt guidance to help you care deeply, live fully, and find peace in every season of life. Until then, take good care of yourself and treasure the time you have today.